Hello guys, welcome back to the Recap Movie channel. In this video, the admin will tell the story of a war film titled Troy, released in 2004. Set in the world of ancient Greek mythology, this film recounts a great war that broke out after one of the princes took away the wife of a king from another land. In the end, a mighty warrior who is a half-god demigod is tasked with ending the war. Curious about the whole story? Don't wonder any longer. Let's dive right into the plot. "3,200 years ago, after a long war fought to unite various territories into his alliance, only Thessaly still refused to submit. Since both sides did not want more soldiers to fall on the battlefield, they finally agreed to a treaty. To determine the outcome, each side would send their best warrior, and whoever lost would have to acknowledge the opponent's victory. On the other side, a king named Nestor tried to persuade Achilles by saying that if he won, the Achaeans could save hundreds of soldiers and avoid even greater bloodshed. As a result, Achilles accepted the challenge. With just one move, he easily defeated his opponent. Meanwhile, Menelaus, the king of Sparta, grew tired of the ongoing war and chose to make peace with the region of Troy, which was known to be very difficult to conquer. Because of this, he held a celebration to welcome two princes from Troy as a symbol of peace between the two kingdoms. During the feast, various luxurious dishes, drinks, and beautiful girls were provided to enliven the atmosphere. But who knows what Paris was thinking? Instead of enjoying the party like everyone else, he glanced at and followed the host's wife all the way to her chamber. That woman was none other than Menelaus's wife, Queen Helen. But what could be done? It turned out that Paris and Helen had secretly harbored feelings for each other for a long time. Helen then expressed her sadness because the next day Paris had to return to Troy. That meant they would never see each other again. In short, the next morning, as Paris and Hector were traveling back to Troy, Paris said he wanted to tell his brother something. He then led Hector to the ship's deck and revealed Helen, who had been hiding there. Of course, Hector was furious at his brother's actions. How could he not be? Paris had recklessly kidnapped the enemy's wife, even though they had just agreed to a peace treaty the night before. Hector intended to return to Sparta to bring Helen back. However, Paris, who was the youngest and always followed his heart, insisted on staying with Helen. He even said he was willing to return to Sparta if Helen had to be brought back. Realizing that his brother would most likely be killed if he returned to Sparta, Hector finally decided to continue the journey to Troy. On the other side, Menelaus told his brother that his wife had been taken away by the Trojan prince. Unable to accept this insult, the two brothers united and planned to gather forces from various Greek kingdoms to attack Troy. Of course, this news excited Agamemnon greatly. He saw the war as a golden opportunity to control the Aegean Sea and, if successful in conquering Troy, to destroy the most important city on the coast of Asia Minor. Before devising the attack plan, Agamemnon first discussed with Nestor. There, Nestor suggested that all the forces from the Greek kings should join the Trojan War. But Nestor also reminded him that Troy had never fallen or lost a war. That was why they needed Achilles and his famously powerful soldiers. Agamemnon initially rejected the proposal because Achilles and his followers were uncontrollable and only fought as they pleased. He feared that one day Achilles would get rid of him and seize his power. But Nestor reminded him again that Achilles had never lost a battle, and his presence would be a great advantage for the Greeks in their effort to conquer Troy. The next day, King Agamemnon sent his men to Ithaca to ask King Odysseus to take part in the war. He also hoped that Odysseus could persuade Achilles to be willing to join.
King Odysseus.
Meanwhile, in Thessaly, Achilles was seen training his student and cousin, Patroclus. In the middle of the training session, Odysseus and his troops arrived to see them. Odysseus's visit this time aimed to convey the request for Achilles to join the fight against Troy. Although Achilles initially refused to fight for Agamemnon's interests,
nor will the heroes who fight in it.
he later went to see his mother, who was the sea goddess named Thetis. At that time, Thetis was searching for seashells on the beach. There, his mother reminded her son that if he chose to stay and not join the war, he would live a peaceful and happy life. However, his name would never be remembered by anyone. On the other hand, if he joined the war and succeeded in conquering Troy, his name would be remembered for all time. Achilles, who longed for fame and wanted his name to be remembered forever, ultimately chose to join the war.
I know this.
The next day, Achilles, Patroclus, and his Myrmidon forces sailed to Troy along with the entire Greek fleet. Meanwhile, in Troy, Hector, Paris, and Helen were welcomed by the people and their father, King Priam. There, Hector also reunited with his wife and their infant son. Additionally, they met their niece, who had now grown into a beautiful girl named Briseis. Soon after, King Priam began to discuss his youngest son's actions. Hector suggested that Helen be returned to prevent war from breaking out. According to him, if this were not done, a great war would erupt and many innocent people would become victims. However, Priam was unwilling to have his son escort Helen back to Sparta. He preferred to go to war to protect his child. The king was also confident that the god Apollo would protect Troy and believed that their kingdom would be just fine. On the other side, Helen was filled with fear because sooner or later Menelaus would find them and kill both her and Paris. From that point, Helen realized how great the risk they had to face was. Nevertheless, her love for Paris never changed.
We're the same age. Younger than I ever was.
The next day, the Trojan troops and citizens were shocked by the appearance of the combined Greek fleet visible in the distance. The force was led by Achilles along with his 50 Myrmidon ships, whose crews were very eager to fight immediately. Patroclus also appeared very excited to join the battle. But Achilles forbade him and ordered his cousin to stay and guard the ship. As the Myrmidon ships began to reach the shore, the Trojan forces immediately showered them with hundreds of arrows. Even so, quite a few Myrmidon soldiers managed to land. Achilles and his troops then formed a shield wall. When they were close enough to the enemy, Achilles immediately ordered his troops to launch an attack. Several Greek soldiers, including the strongest warrior named Ajax, then continued moving forward until they reached the temple of Apollo. Meanwhile, Hector and his soldiers demonstrated their combat skills. From a distance, Hector hurled his spear and successfully struck one of the Greek soldiers. After that, Achilles and his forces lured Hector into entering the temple. As soon as Hector and his followers entered the place, they were immediately showered with relentless attacks until finally only Hector remained. However, because the location was not visible to many people, Achilles refused to kill Hector at that moment. He preferred to face the prince in a real, great battle when the war reached its peak.
It's too early in the day for killing princes.
In short, after letting Hector go, the entire Greek army finally arrived at Troy and prepared to face the battle that would begin the next day. Meanwhile, Briseis realized that Agamemnon was a figure who was very hungry for power. He always sought to make his name more well-known and wanted everyone to submit to him. Not only that, Agamemnon was also known as a very ambitious person who did not want to lose any of his influence.
I don't want anyone dying.
On the other side, the Trojan leaders held a meeting filled with various opinions. Some blamed Paris's actions, which were considered reckless for triggering a great war and sacrificing many lives. But others did not see a problem with it and remained ready to fight to defend Troy's honor. Meanwhile, Paris, who was the main cause of the conflict, finally stepped forward and declared that he was ready to face Menelaus in a one-on-one duel.
It's a dispute between two men. The winner will take her home.
After the meeting ended, Priam expressed that he was proud of Paris's courage in being willing to risk everything for the woman he loved. The king also encouraged his son to keep fighting for his love. As a show of support, Priam then gave Paris the sword of Troy, which held great historical value for their kingdom, to help him face the upcoming battle. Meanwhile, Hector's wife begged her husband not to join the battle. She was afraid that Hector would fall on the battlefield, causing their son to grow up without a father. Hector then tried to calm his wife by saying that he would not fight and that Paris would face Menelaus the next day. After that, Hector went out to clear his mind. It was there that he saw Helen trying to escape. Helen expressed that she felt guilty for the deaths of the Trojan soldiers who had become victims of the conflict. However, Hector explained that returning Helen to Menelaus at that point would not stop the war. According to him, the conflict had already become much bigger than that issue. That was why Hector asked Helen to stay in Troy. The next day, the Trojan soldiers were on full alert. Along with King Priam and Helen, who watched everything from atop the city walls. Hector and Paris then faced Menelaus, who came demanding that Helen be returned to him and that Troy submit to his rule. Of course, Hector refused those demands. Paris then boldly challenged Menelaus to a one-on-one fight. Menelaus accepted the challenge without hesitation. As a far more experienced fighter, Menelaus immediately launched attack after attack with great ferocity. Paris was overwhelmed and could barely put up any meaningful resistance. When Menelaus prepared to finish off Paris, the prince crawled towards Hector's feet and admitted that he could no longer continue the fight. But Menelaus still demanded a complete victory by killing Paris. Seeing his brother in danger, Hector did not stand idly by. He quickly stepped forward and swung his sword, successfully killing Menelaus. This action, of course, enraged Agamemnon. Without waiting any longer, he immediately ordered his entire army to attack Troy. Meanwhile, Hector quickly carried the injured Paris away from the duel ground and gathered his forces to face the upcoming massive assault. On the other side, Achilles observed the progression of the war alongside Patroclus. He looked annoyed at the way Agamemnon was leading his army, as the Greek forces moved haphazardly without a clear strategy and ignored the archers positioned atop Troy's walls. In that battle, Hector managed to kill many Greek soldiers thanks to his strategy and skill on the battlefield, including Ajax. Because more and more Greek soldiers were dying, their forces finally decided to retreat and return to the shores of Troy. That night, Agamemnon began looking for a reason to attack Troy again. If the only reason was to take back Helen, that was no longer relevant because Menelaus was dead. In order for them to win the war, Odysseus suggested that Agamemnon set aside his ego and once again ask Achilles to join the battle. The suggestion was finally accepted. Agamemnon then sent his men to meet with Achilles and ask him to return to the battlefield to save the Greek soldiers. Achilles then received them in his tent. There, Achilles tried to show that he was not just a killer but also had a human side. But at that moment, Briseis secretly intended to kill Achilles. Nevertheless, Achilles noticed her intention and instead told Briseis not to hesitate if she truly wanted to finish him off. Hearing that, Briseis abandoned her intention. Their relationship then grew closer, and the two expressed their feelings for each other. The next morning, Odysseus again tried to persuade Achilles to join the Greek forces. However, Achilles still refused the request. That decision left Patroclus feeling disappointed. He saw how many Greek soldiers had fallen and wanted to fight to avenge the deaths of his comrades. Meanwhile, the Trojan leaders held another meeting. During that meeting, they asked Hector to defend Troy and drive the Greek forces out of their territory. Although Hector had doubts, he eventually agreed to lead the attack. However, he chose to launch a surprise assault when the Greek forces were off guard.
Prepare the army.
In short, exactly at 4 in the morning, Hector and his thousands of soldiers began their surprise attack. They showered the Greek camp with flaming arrows, then rolled burning balls of straw that crashed into the ranks of the Greek soldiers who had just woken from sleep. A fierce battle raged until morning. When the war reached its peak, a man wearing Achilles' battle gear finally appeared to help the Greek forces. In the midst of the chaos, Hector came face to face with the man who claimed to be Achilles. Without hesitation, Hector managed to kill him by thrusting his weapon into his neck. This event deeply devastated the Greek soldiers. However, when Hector opened his opponent's helmet, it was revealed that the man was not the real Achilles, but rather Patroclus, who had disguised himself as Achilles. The person Hector had killed turned out to be his beloved cousin. Soon after, Achilles, who had just woken up, received the news of Patroclus's death from his subordinate named Eutorus. Although Odysseus tried to calm him down, Achilles swore he would take revenge on Hector. On the other side, Hector realized that Achilles would certainly come looking for him. Because of that, he showed a secret passageway to his wife and child so they could escape if the situation worsened.
I want you to get out, boy.
The next day, as Achilles prepared to settle his revenge on Hector, Briseis begged him to reconsider his decision. She reminded him that Hector had not intentionally killed Patroclus, as he had believed the man was Achilles. However, Achilles ignored her plea and left with a heart full of rage. Achilles then appeared alone before the gates of Troy to challenge Hector to a duel. Before facing Achilles, Hector first bid farewell to his family. He believed that this fight might very well be the last of his life. Hector then went out to face Achilles. Before the duel began, Hector proposed that whoever won should give the loser a proper burial. But Achilles rejected the proposal, and so the fierce battle between the two began. Both fighters demonstrated extraordinary skill with their spears and shields. As time went on, the duel became increasingly intense and tense. Achilles began to show his superiority, while Hector appeared to be growing more exhausted. Paris, watching the fight, began to lose hope, while Andromache tried to compose herself despite being filled with fear and sorrow. After a long and extremely fierce battle, Hector could no longer hold his ground.
Don't take my glory.
Achilles found an opening and thrust his sword, killing the Trojan prince. But Achilles' rage had not subsided. After killing Hector, He tied his opponent's body to his war chariot and dragged it before the Trojan forces. Priam, witnessing his son's death in such a gruesome manner, immediately fainted, unable to bear his grief. In short, that night, King Priam secretly slipped into Achilles' camp. With great humility, he begged Achilles to hand over Hector's body so that it could be properly buried according to Trojan tradition. Seeing Priam pleading incessantly with great sorrow, Achilles could no longer contain his emotions. He began to regret what he had done to Hector. Therefore, Achilles handed over Hector's body to King Priam. He also guaranteed that the Greek army would not attack Troy for 12 days, so that the funeral procession could take place without interference. Not only that, Achilles also allowed Briseis to leave. Although it was difficult, the two had to part after going through various events that had brought them closer together. Soon after, Agamemnon learned of the secret agreement Achilles had made with Priam. Of course, this made him very angry. In his view, Achilles was beginning to show sympathy for Troy. Agamemnon would rather see Greek soldiers fall than watch Troy withstand their attacks. Because of that, Agamemnon swore he would conquer Troy by any means necessary. At the same time, Odysseus devised another plan. He proposed that the Greek forces infiltrate Troy using a giant wooden horse. Odysseus then asked the Greek soldiers to build this large wooden horse and hide their fleet in a nearby bay. Additionally, most of the Greek forces were ordered to pretend to sail home, leaving only traces that made them appear to have given up. After 12 days had passed, the Trojan citizens went to the beach and found that the Greek army had vanished. They also discovered a giant wooden horse left on the shore, along with several corpses believed to be Greek soldiers. Paris grew suspicious of the situation and suggested to his father that the wooden horse be burned. However, one of the royal advisors argued that the horse was likely an offering to the sea god Poseidon. Because of that, King Priam decided to bring the wooden horse into the city as a symbol of the war's end. The Trojan citizens then celebrated their victory with great joy. They believed the war was over and that the Greek army had truly left their land. Meanwhile, one of the Trojan soldiers on patrol was startled by the appearance of thousands of Greek ships that had been hiding in a nearby bay. As that soldier was about to return to the city to warn the others, he was first killed by an arrow, preventing him from delivering the news. That night, it was revealed that a number of Greek soldiers had been hiding inside the wooden horse, including Odysseus and Achilles. They then quietly exited, killed the gate guards, and opened the way for the rest of the Greek forces to enter the city of Troy. The Greek army quickly stormed the city. They set buildings on fire, looted gold, toppled statues, and killed anyone who tried to stand in their way. In the midst of the chaos, Achilles rushed to the palace to save Briseis. Meanwhile, Priam could only sob as he watched his once proud city slowly be destroyed before his very eyes. Meanwhile, Helen, Hector's wife, and several surviving citizens tried to escape the city through a secret passage. Paris also asked them to leave first, while he went back into the city to look for his father and Briseis. Before parting, Paris handed the sword of Troy to a young boy named Aeneas. He hoped that one day the sword could be used to protect the Trojan survivors and help them find a new land to start their lives over. At the same time, the Greek forces managed to break into King Priam's palace. There, Priam was tragically killed by Agamemnon after being attacked without being able to put up any meaningful resistance.
Children.
On the other side, Achilles continued searching for Briseis amid the destruction of the city. However, Agamemnon found Briseis first and intended to take her back to Greece to be made a slave. Unbeknownst to Agamemnon, Briseis was hiding a dagger. When the opportunity came, she quickly stabbed the dagger into Agamemnon's neck, killing him instantly. As a result of this event, Agamemnon's guards immediately attacked Briseis. Fortunately, Achilles arrived just in time and managed to save her from danger. When he saw Achilles was distracted, Paris seized the moment to avenge Hector's death. He released an arrow that struck Achilles in the heel, the legendary warrior's only weak spot. Not stopping there, Paris released several more arrows that embedded themselves in Achilles' body. Even as Briseis begged Paris to stop his attack, Paris continued until Achilles was severely wounded and on the verge of death. In the last moments of his life, Achilles bid farewell to Briseis. He told her to leave immediately and save herself along with Paris. Having no other choice, Briseis finally obeyed his request. With his last remaining breath, Achilles watched Briseis run away from the place with Paris. Soon after, the legendary warrior breathed his last. Achilles' death was witnessed by the Greek soldiers, who were deeply devastated by the loss of their greatest fighter. Meanwhile, Hector's wife, Helen, Paris, Briseis, and the other surviving Trojan citizens were seen walking through the mountains, leaving their homeland behind. Although their hearts were filled with sorrow at witnessing their beloved city destroyed, they continued their journey in search of a new place to live and to begin a new life. The film then closes with the Greek victory, as they finally succeeded in conquering the city of Troy. Meanwhile, Achilles received a proper final honor. Odysseus personally cremated his body, saying that he and all the Greek people would always remember the name of Achilles. And that is the end of this film's story. Okay guys, that was the plot of the 2004 film Troy. I hope you enjoyed the story. See you in the next video.